Okay, we're going to get started now. If everyone could please take their seats. Also, per la lingua italiana sarà il canale 4. Okay. Perfetto, bene. All right, hello, good afternoon. Thank you all for coming. Good afternoon, my name is Kelsey Gussie, and I'm a journalist for Rome Reports, a TV news agency here in Rome. It's an honor and a pleasure to welcome you all here for this press conference, and a special welcome again to all of you for being here. This press conference is hosted by the International Union of Superiors General to present this unique blended e-learning unit developed for and together with women religious, with the purpose of providing a better understanding of what safeguarding means, both in and for religious and consecrated life. This unit is produced by the Pontifical Gregorian University's Institute for Anthropology, or the IADC, in partnership with the Hilton Foundation. So in this next hour, we'll watch a video presentation on this blended e-learning unit, and hear also directly from people who have been involved in creating this unit. But first of all, let me introduce the people that are here with us today. So we'll start with Sister Jane. Thank you for being here. She's representing the Hilton Foundation. We have the IADC Director, Father Hans Zollner, and Sister Patricia Murray. And she's also the Executive Director of the International Union of Superiors General. So Sister Patricia, would you like to start us off this conversation with telling us a little bit about the commitment of religious?
I'm very pleased to welcome you here today, those online, on behalf of the International Union of Superiors General, but also the Conrad Hilton Foundation and the Institute of Anthropology, which is committed to raising awareness about human dignity and to promoting education and interdisciplinary research on human dignity. And I think it's fair to say that the promotion of human dignity is at the heart of this collaborative partnership between our three organisations. The members of UISG number over 1,900 Superiors General, and they in turn represent over 630,000 sisters worldwide. And since 2016, the UISG has focused on helping congregations to create a culture of care in every community and in every ministry. This approach is based on recognising the innate dignity of every human person and the need to promote and recognise this dignity in a multiplicity of contexts in which sisters live and minister. Pope Francis regularly reminds us that human beings are creatures of this world, enjoying a right to life and happiness and endowed with unique dignity. And he emphasises that recognising human dignity is central to building a society in which we are brothers and sisters all. No one is to be excluded, and each one is to be cared for. We as sisters recognise past failures, and in doing so, that makes us even more committed to making human dignity and care the central pillars of our lives and ministries as religious women. We aim to create healthy and life-giving environments where people can flourish and reach their full potential. I came that you may have life, and life to the full. Fullness of life for each person and for all is a gospel imperative. And so as religious women, we must be well prepared so that we have the knowledge, skills, and competencies to nurture fullness of life, especially in the many contexts where healing is needed. Therefore, formation is essential, from initial formation with the religious congregations to ongoing lifelong formation. UISG has offered online and in-person formation for many years. However, this new e-learning initiative offers, as you will learn, new possibilities to extend the scope and the reach of the formation which is urgently needed. We want to thank Father Hans Zollner and his colleagues at the Institute of Anthropology for this important new development, which I believe will enhance the knowledge and skills of sisters and their collaborators worldwide and make them a powerful force for good in creating a society where the care, well-being and safeguarding of each person is at the centre. And without the support of the Conrad N. Hilton Foundation, it would not have been possible to create such possibilities. With Sister Jane Wakahu's leadership of the Catholic Sisters Initiative at the Foundation, enhancing the role and influence of Catholic sisters has been a priority. I believe that the fruits of this e-learning platform will be many, including well-formed religious women who, by networking together and sharing best practice, will create spaces for healing, for empowerment, and for wholeness. We encourage leaders in religious congregations to make use of this new learning opportunity so that we as sisters across the world may play our part in enhancing and protecting the dignity of people, especially those who are vulnerable and at risk. And my prayer is that the God of all life will help us to bear witness to the dignity of all whom he has created, regardless of stage of life or wealth or ability or colour or creed. We know that every person is fully equal in God's loving eyes. And this is our prayer through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Thank you, Sister Pat. Thank you for that. And also, you've mentioned human dignity. And actually, before when we were talking, Sister Jane and I, she was telling me a little bit about the Hilton Foundation and how they really work at supporting religious sisters around the world, and especially working with the most vulnerable. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about that and how this project plays a role in that.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for joining us today. I am Sister Jane Wakahu. I work at the Conrad N. Hilton Foundation with a mission to alleviate human suffering. Mr. Hilton says our fellow men and women deserve to be loved, never to be left to wander alone in poverty and darkness. I first want to thank Father Hans Zollner and Sister Pat Murley for this timely and profound partnership in keeping our religious communities, our church, and society safe. This initiative demonstrates the spirit of synodality, working together with our people. I am delighted to participate in the launch of the platform today for the online training. As we know, religious formation concerns intellectual knowledge, theological and spiritual, and includes emotional and affective learning. Integrating safeguarding in the formation process demonstrates the commitment of the church and congregations to promote a safe culture, promoting the welfare of all and protecting those that are at risk. Safeguarding itself helps recognize the dignity of each person inherent in the creation, like Sister Pat has spelled out. All that God has created was good and is good. The safeguarding formation training will help to preserve this goodness, the breath of life, and the dignity bestowed in humans by God. While developing safeguarding policies at the institute or organizational level is critical as a component to safeguarding, the true essence of safeguarding is embodied in the formation of the human person to understand the core tenet of the dignity of the human person and healthy, respectful, and meaningful interaction with each other in a community. We know safeguarding is the responsibility of every member of the body of Christ, and it starts by understanding oneself. Integrating safeguarding as a core principle or a core course in the formation programs will help those being formed understand themselves in relation to safeguarding and their role in keeping themselves and those they serve safe. As a result, safeguarding becomes embodied in the prophetic witness of the vowed members, being each other's keeper, and particularly those entrusted to them. We at the Hilton Foundation have included in our grantee letter when we make funding that they should develop principles of safeguarding within their organization, but also where the rubber meets the road is where we are ensuring that everyone is protected and is safe. In the programs that we fund, we ensure and encourage our partners to be attentive to the most vulnerable, those they serve and those they work with. As you know, the world is changing rapidly, and technological innovations fuel all types of abuse. The IADC and UISG and Hilton Foundation have joined efforts to apply the expertise of our specific organizations to ensure safeguarding becomes a practice embodied in the life of the consecrated life and those we serve. For IADC, their expertise is developing training materials and delivering those training, while the UISG expertise is connected to all women religious and conferences of major superiors globally. And the Hilton Foundation provides the resources needed to support this important and noble work for the life of the church, for the life of the communities, and for the lives of each individual member in those communities. We are making these courses available for all consecrated persons and those they work with. Our aim is to see that each conference of women religious and congregations integrates safeguarding training in their formation program for a healthy church and health community and healthy ministries, and also working together in the spirit of synodality for better witness in all those we serve. Finally, we want to ensure holistic and transformative religious formation. Safeguarding must be a core tenet in every of our trainings. Thank you to IADC for the hands, and thank you, Sister Pat and the UISG for this incredible partnership for keeping our world and our people safe.
Thank you, Sister Jane. And I think you bring in a very interesting point about technology. And so with that, I think Father Hans Zoner will be able to talk a little bit more about that aspect of safeguarding. Father Hans.
Yeah, good afternoon, and thank you for being here, those who are here in the room and those who join us online. Thank you also for the ambassadors and their representation of the embassies to the Holy See. Why are we here? We are here because we want to follow Jesus Christ and to live out his values and the values of the gospel, being with the most vulnerable ones, and to care for those who have been wounded. This is the starting point. More specifically, we are here because we have joined forces, and I'm really very grateful, and our team is very grateful for the collaboration with Sister Jane, Sister Pat, and all those who have been involved for what has been spelled out already, a very fruitful effort to do what each one can do from his or her side to promote safeguarding, which means safe space, safe relationships, and safe processes. How is this related to our work at the Institute of Anthropology? We have been training and educating and forming religious priests and lay people for the last almost more than 12 years now. We have been doing this in residential courses, but from the beginning in a blended e-learning course. That was our start. And I'm very happy that we have reached now a different level of technical possibilities, and also of the content development, as well as the pedagogical concept behind that. We believe that we change structure by changing people. And this is our educational effort that we have been following for many years now. So the blended learning gives us also an opportunity in the cooperation with the partner institutions and ourselves to reach out to many more people, because we need to get to a tipping point where that number of persons will have been formed that bring also about structural, institutional, organizational, or as we say today, systemic change, which is dearly needed. Finally, why religious women? Because we believe that religious women have been, are, and will be game changers in this. I think we are one of the very few academic units at the Pontifical Universities in Rome where a majority of students have been women, and many of them, if not all of them, have been religious women. And we are very happy that over the last years we have sent to the countries where students have come from for the residential courses, people who have already taken on roles and responsibilities in their dioceses, in their congregations, in their organizations, universities, faculties, which already make a difference. I can witness to that because also over the last months and weeks, I've seen that on the ground in different parts of the world. Sisters make a change, and sisters can intervene and are important game changers. And this is why we are most grateful that we have this event here. I want to thank here also the team of the IADC. You will meet a few of them who will speak now on the development of the program itself, but all those who have been involved in different capacities. One person is missing here, Father Bear, who has another appointment and can't be here. So he's the mind behind the pedagogical structure and approach. But I just want to take this occasion also to thank all those who have been actively involved from UISG and from the Hilton Foundation, so that we have this moment together, which is, for me, and I hope for all of us, a sign of hope. Thank you.
Thank you, Father Zollner. Thank you, Sister Jane, and thank you, Sister Pat, for that little deep dive into why we're all here. We'll do a quick set change, I think, and we'll bring up the other panelists. Dr. Alessandra, if you would please come up here and join me. Dr. Alessandra Campo is an associate lecturer, and she's also been heavily involved in the blended learning program here. And I believe she's going to demonstrate for us just exactly what we're talking about in a visual presentation. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for being here. And again, thank you for the UISG and the Hilton Foundation, which has supported giving such a big support to our work. I will briefly introduce you to this module, this learning unit we have been talking about. Also on behalf of Father Bear, who has Father Zollner told before, is the mind behind the pedagogical structure of this learning unit. So we have a short presentation which will help us in this journey. Already from the first slide, you see that we are going into this journey, which is also a technical one and was also technically challenging. We had to build a brand new e-learning platform to be able to offer this form of module. One thing to keep in mind is that this is a blended e-learning module, and the whole program I will be talking about is a blended one. So it's supposed to be implemented in institutions and combined with on-site sessions. So the collaboration between us and the institutions which will be implementing the course is really crucial, is at the core of our work. So, there will be many images and videos. So I think I will give the word to the images by showing you a small part of the learning unit, so the introductory video, which gives the idea of the whole work.
About what safeguarding means to you as a sister, a nun, a religious, a consecrated person, as a woman. But we're not here just to talk. We're here to understand what you can do personally to combat one of the greatest crises facing the Church in our time: abuse of all kinds. We're here to discover how the uniqueness of what you are and who you are can contribute to making safeguarding something practical and effective in your community first and foremost, and in whatever area you may be serving. Education, healthcare, social work, youth ministry, advocacy, administration, leadership, because that's where you come into contact with other people. And that's where you bring the added value of being someone who has chosen to dedicate her life to serving others and to building up the body of Christ that is the Church. You already know that when one part of that body suffers, every other part suffers as well. Right now, the whole body of Christ is wounded by abuse, and that is why every single part of that body, including you and me, is being called to contribute towards its healing. No exceptions. No excuses, no one excluded. This is a spiritual journey. It takes more talking and reflecting. It takes serious spiritual commitment. Join us now as together we explore the process of understanding your role in safeguarding as a religious sister and as a woman.
Okay, this is the first experience the participants of the courses that will be using this learning module will have. And then this journey starts. This image shows the structure of the unit. First thing to say, this blended module has been developed together with sisters and religious women who have helped us to develop the structure and the content. So it's not meant to be a sort of guide given from a Western institution situated in Rome, which is telling around the world what to do. It's more meant to be something that we, with our resource and with the help of those who are supporting us, have developed to give a disposal, to be offered to all contexts and institutions, congregation, where there is the need and the will of implementing safeguarding programs. So it's more something we offer to facilitate this journey that we will build together. So as you see, after the introductory video that we have just seen, there are three main chapters in which the unit is divided. The one is focused on faith and service. So why do I join a religious life, and what's the role of faith in this decision? Then the trivos, and then the community as the core elements of the religious consecrated life. And within each one of this chapter, we explore the potentiality, the positive sides of each of this concept for safeguarding, but also the risks that can be seen inside of them. A blind faith, a misunderstanding of what faith is, or an unreflected way of choosing this form of life. And all those dynamics that can happen also within congregation and community, these are explored to raise awareness about the risk factors, not only towards the sisters and their own life of the religious women, but also in the service that they can offer, which, as Father Zonement is crucial, especially in this moment of the life of the church. So this two-side side can show how safeguarding needs to be improved, can be improved both within religious life and in the service that consecrated women can give to the others. And the last part, normally in these chapters, there will be videos showing with the conversation with the persons that will follow this presentation about the topic. Then cartoons will show the risk factors I was talking about, and then digital activities that are provided for the participants to the course to practically reflect and try to apply what the insights they received to their own experience, which is something we cannot tell much about. That's why I like the sentence from Sister Jane, promoting a practice embodied in the life of consecrated women. This is exactly the aim of this course, of these materials that we have developed. And that's why, as you see, there are other two levels besides the central one, which is the one including the contents for the students. There is a level for the trainers. So each module each chapter will also include indications for the trainers who will be giving the course on site in the congregations, in the university, in the institutions where this unit will be used. And the same will be done for the institutions, the same institutions. So indication for the superiors, for example, so that what is given to the students also promote a reflection at the upper level, at the leadership level, which is also much needed. So you see keywords as management guidelines, best practices, examples, improvement of the working environment, and so on. Again, all those indications are not meant to be instruction or about what it has to do. They are more materials to improve and foster the reflection that, and the journey, the safeguarding journey that each institution, each congregation can do in its own specific context. Because we are well aware that our point of view and our resources are the European ones. We are in Rome. Most of us comes from European countries. And we are well aware that despite the common challenge we are all facing regarding abuse, the way it can be addressed and also the way it happens can be very different in different regions and contexts. So we do not pretend to give a solution. We offer the possibility to build together possible solutions in each different context. So really, the collaboration between us providing this and all those institutions who will be using this material is really integral part of this journey path. Another, I may add something else. This is not the only module we are developing. Again, thanks to the great support of the Hilton Foundation, we are working on other e-learning modules. And of course, the sisters and the congregations who will be interested in having this module about women religious will be also able to make use of the other modules. You see here the titles, terms and definition, punishment and care, perpetrators and victims, private and public, communication and media, faith and culture, and vision and reality. We are working on these further modules, which will be available in English and Spanish in the next few months. Also, this unit for the religious women is available both in English and Spanish, and more language translations will be provided in due time. So, and all those learning modules are structured the way I showed you before, with the possibility of getting indications also for the institutions and the trainers. I mentioned that the platform has been created to be able to offer this kind of units. On the platform, all those who will be enrolled in this program will be able to share best practices and opinion with others. So the idea is this is not only a formation journey, but also a way for improving networking, which is another important element of safeguarding. I greet you now with another promo video, which is perhaps the best way to introduce the further speakers, who are some of those who have been very much involved in the practical development of the learning content. So I will show you this video, and perhaps we can invite them to join us. If it starts. Yeah. Audio.
Thank you for joining me on this safeguarding journey, a module that's been prepared for and with you as a consecrated woman and religious sister. Joining me and assisting me on this journey is a religious sister.
My name is Sister Louise O'Rourke, and I'm a sister of the Sister Disciples of the Divine Master, which is part of the Pauline family.
We've tried to create a space which metaphorically represents religious life, this white, open, hopefully welcoming space.
That's a very good choice, because religious life is a space that needs to be open. It has 3 moments here that represents our prayer, our fraternity, our common life, our communitarian life. But also these seats represent a space where we can dialogue, where we can share, we can learn so much more.
What does safeguarding mean to you as a religious sister?
The bridge. I come from a small town that had a bridge that was always seen as a point of division rather than unity. And for me, safeguarding is that bridge, getting from one place to another safely. As men and women that live in this world, we have to have our eyes towards the most vulnerable in our society. In the Old Testament, we call them the Anawim, the little ones of God. So if I'm in a religious community, I'm in consecrated life, I've made a conscious choice to be on the lookout.
3 vows: poverty, chastity, and obedience.
I see it not as a bind that restricts me, but it's a bind that says I'm committed to you. But for me, this you is the Lord, because I make a vow to God. And it as a vow being to God, it becomes freeing. And in the same way, I can free others as well.
Poverty is the freedom to give, to share. Chastity, that's a tricky one.
Chastity is always the freedom to love and to be loved. It's both. At the root of obedience is listening. In fact, that's what the word means. Obedire, listen. The Gospels tell us that everything will be brought to light. Jesus tells us He is the light, so if we don't have transparency, we're not living the Gospel. Women religious, we believe that we have something to offer, something to say, a voice that needs to be heard, not just as a token exercise, but because we're also made in the image and likeness of God. We've made a vow, a commitment to God, and we believe that He gives us the grace to live that, to live it, to promote it, also because we have gifts and talents that the Church can benefit from.
So, thank you again. Perhaps this last slide, there's another sister, Sister Mary Lembo, who collaborates with us. She works on the topic of abuse of sisters. So she has been one of the sisters we have been in dialogue with for developing this unit. And this is her statement about the module, which we are very grateful for. Unfortunately, she cannot be here because she's in Africa at the moment. But yes, I would greet you with this as, yes, a nice result of our efforts. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Alessandra. And I will invite the second group of panelists to come up and join us. Yeah, I think it's really good for you. Thank you. Actually, if you want to say. But it's really interesting, actually. I can only imagine how much work and creativity went into production of such a complex and articulate blended learning program that can be used and is intended to be used in such a diverse context around the world, you know, in Africa and Asia and Latin America and beyond. And so now, after that, I will introduce our new panelists. So Sister Louise O'Rourke, as we saw in the video. And then we have also Sean Patrick Lovett, who was also in the video, and Simone Spampinato. Right. Perfect. And so each of them will now talk a little bit about the more in-depth aspect of the program or the unit that we have. And so, Sister Louise, in the video we also saw that you're part of a congregation that is part of the Pauline family, but most people maybe don't know so much about that branch.
So my congregation is the Sister Disciples of the Divine Master, which is part of the wider Pauline family, which was founded by Blessed James Alberione to evangelize through social media 100 years ago. I'm sure he didn't think about using an e-platform for safeguarding 100 years ago. So it's providential, but also a great privilege to be able to be part of a project like this, because even from a ministry perspective, to think that we have this whole digital continent that we could evangelize, but also that we can use to put forward an important topic like safeguarding in consecrated life, especially female consecrated life. So there's that happy coincidence or God incidence of being part of a project that is taking place also on an e-platform. So I was very happy to be part of that from that perspective.
Thank you. And also, Sean Patrick Lovett, it's very interesting to have you also on the panel, and I'm not really sure how to introduce you.
Well, in this context, I'm the media advisor to the IADC. Father Hans Zollner generously invited me over to assist in the communications transition from what used to be the Center for Child Protection into the IADC, which we at home call the Safeguarding Institute.
And also, Simone, because you're part of the Jumping Flea production company. Jumping Flea is a very interesting name, is it not? Could you describe maybe why you have that name?
So first of all, good afternoon to everybody, and thank you. It's a real honor to me to be here to talk about my job and to see the results of my job. So talking about the name of my production company, so Jumping Flea, it's a metaphor that we like for our small independent film production company based here in Rome, because if you think of a human being, if he was able to jump like a flea, with one jump, he will be able to reach the top of the Empire State Building. So the idea behind our name is a small reality able to do big jump and to work with very big institutions like yours. Yeah.
And speaking of a small jump for a big project, Sister Louise, why did you choose to be a part of this project?
I suppose initially when I was approached and I heard the outline of the project and what it entailed, my first reaction was, that's brilliant, it's a great project. When I realized that I was going to be the one actually doing the work in the studio, so to speak, there was that moment of resistance, and yet that sense of this is something really worthwhile to be involved in, and also collaboration where different areas of expertise come together to offer something that's very much needed in our church. In my previous life, before I came to Rome, I had a lot of contact with religious consecrated life in the Archdiocese of Dublin, both in a canonical capacity but also in a safeguarding capacity. And more I came to see that so many female religious didn't see this as being pertinent. Not that they weren't committed to safeguarding procedures and policies, there were ad extra, but ad intra within the communities, how we retain our communities as safe spaces, as spaces of growth, of well-being, of being a wholesome growth, all those, I suppose, descriptions of community that also Sister Pat alluded to in that lovely biblical verse, the fullness of life that we want to give. So I think that's what kind of convinced me to take that leap of faith and with what I could offer, and also with my own limitations and everything, but also knowing Sean from other projects, being introduced also to the rest of the team, that there was a great sense of peace in this, that there was good collaboration and there was dialogue, also working the script beforehand. There was a mutual appreciation also of what I could bring to the table being a woman religious, that it wasn't just people talking about us, but it was talking to us and accepting also some of the fine-tuning of the text to make sure that it arrived at all those areas of religious life and consecrated life, that there weren't just blanket words being used, to make sure that it has the widest reach as possible.
And I think it's really interesting to look at the media aspect. So Simone and Sean, if you could talk a little bit about maybe the challenges you faced in looking at how to make this unit for a diverse context, a diverse audience.
Well, it's not just about the words, of course. Everything is communication. Everything is communicating something. The colors we choose to wear, the symbols that we wear. So everything that you see, when Father Hans invited me over, one of our first challenges was the branding. How do you brand? How do you communicate a concept as complex as an Institute of Anthropology, interdisciplinary studies on human dignity and care? How do you talk about something as delicate and as very personal as safeguarding, which is not just protection? I protect you when I stand between you and the person who is trying to hurt you, but I safeguard you when I create an environment, a space, where there's no one trying to hurt you. How do I communicate that through colors? Could you communicate safeguarding through bright colors, through exotic colors, through dull colors? How do you find something in between? The little folder you have in front of you is the result of weeks and weeks of work with various different professionals in the field. How do you communicate an invitation to engage in a safeguarding journey which doesn't look like things that you've seen before, which doesn't diminish the drama of the issue of safeguarding into something that doesn't work on a global scale as well? Because as we've said before, one of the keys to the project is that it needs to work on every continent. It needs to be meaningful to someone who picks this up in Africa, Asia, Latin America, North America, Europe, wherever. And so an image, like a river through a forest, it's a journey, but it also has its risks, doesn't it? It's an adventure. It takes courage. It takes commitment. So there's so many sub-messages that are contained within what we're communicating. One of the challenges, Simone, you can talk about this, was what was the context in which we would have our conversation? And the first idea was, let's do it in a cloister. A cloister is a religious space, and we started looking for religious cloisters. And do you remember why we turned them down, Louise?
Yeah, it was kind of a gut reaction as well, because terminology is important as well, because we use the word consecrated for the commitment that we make, but consecrated women are not just religious as we might see them. They can have a habit, they can not have a habit, they can have different ways of dressing, but it was to try and have that representation. So something like a cloister, with all respect, gives that sense of enclosed sisters, you know, which is a form of consecrated life, but not the only one. But also, for the most part, it's, in a way, it's kind of the stereotypical representation of consecrated life or religious life. So it was kind of bring it out of that space, because also, while we do need a space to work within, the whole transcendent commitment that we have is not locked into a cloister or even a church or a convent or a parlor. So that was, it was a very wise decision, I think, even though initially I had to try and get around that idea, was a white space, because a white space can be very overpowering as well. If you ever had the experience of walking out into the snow and you get snow blindness. But also, many of us will remember from our science class that white is the culmination of all the colours together. So there's that sense of bringing many things together, the diversity of consecrated life, which is lived out in those spaces that we try to represent, chapel, our dining room table, as we walk. So it's to bring it from those kind of constrained spaces to being ordinary spaces, just like we want those conversations to happen, not just in those restrained, enclosed spaces, but in everyday spaces. So it's to move safeguarding into that normality, where we have those conversations that it's not the oh no, we're talking about safeguarding, but rather the theology of safeguarding, a culture of safeguarding. So the space was a big part to play.
Yeah, and I think this is and I think for me personally, this is one of the reasons why I love working with the Institute of Anthropology, because we need always to translate in a very effective and engaging way all these themes that we discuss here. So the idea of to use a cloister, as Sister Louise was saying, was a stereotypical one. So we force ourselves to think in a different way, and in our case, in this case, for the blended videos, it's the white space is also something that can help us focusing on just Sean and Sister Louise and on their dialogue and on some just some specific icons and symbols. And all the dialogue and the pre-production phase is very important, because we need always to find a universal symbol, a universal icon that can be understood in all over the world. So for me, it's very interesting to be part of this team from a creative point of view. And yeah.
Well, and I think it's definitely a different project than maybe you would have done before. Did you approach it differently?
Yes, of course, for every story I need to tell, I need to focus on how I want to tell this story. But in this case, of course, there are so many layers that we need to consider, and especially it's hard, but it's also very exciting to find the right balance between making the video engaging, but at the same time very respectful of the theme we discuss. So it's this balance that I find really interesting, and also the need to tell this story in different ways from the stereotypical ways.
And telling the story in a different way, I mean, Sister Louise, having this, the sisters being a driving force in this, like, because it's not just, as you mentioned, it's not just for sisters, but it was with sisters. Can you talk a little bit about how that played a role?
I think the first involvement in this project is a sign that we see that it's important. As I said, I kind of came late to it, but from the get-go, there was that sense of we need to get this onto a global platform, and you need to be involved, not just because you're Louise, but because you're a sister. This is the life you're living. You have your experience that you can bring to the table, but just as the different breakdown of the modules that we talked about, what are the vows, what is community life, what is faith, what is service, that we looked at the positive aspect of all of that, but we also looked at the risks and limitations. So having sisters being able to express that in a transparent way, for me, implies a commitment to want to move forward, and not to be always on that kind of reactive manner, but to be in that space where we're forming generations of sisters. We're healing wounds within communities, because when I see those first 3 modules, there are 3 strands of the one rope. And if we look at a lot of our dynamics in community life, I think many of us can go back and say it really comes back to how we live and understand the vows, how we live and understand our faith, how we live and understand Noi comprendiamo la nostra chiamata alla missione, al servizio dell'autorità, e se questi elementi non vengono vissuti in maniera sana, sappiamo bene quello che potrà avvenire, tutti i malfunzionamenti del nostro sistema, e le suore sono in prima linea in questo percorso con i propri contributi, e si rende davvero reale il nostro programma, non è qualcosa che inventiamo, ma fa parte delle nostre vite, dei contributi delle nostre suore. Come potete vedere, ci sono stati anche riscontri da parte dei nostri studenti che sono stati in grado di rispondere direttamente a questo percorso. Questo è il nostro contributo.
I think that's a beautiful note to end on.
Credo
So
sia
before we
una
get to the
meravigliosa
refreshments, which I know everyone's really excited
riflessione
about,
con la quale
we'll open it
concludere.
up
Perciò,
to
prima di
any
andare
questions
al
that any of you might
rinfresco,
have.
apriamo ora
If you
la
do have questions, I'll just
discussione
ask
e
you
vediamo se
identify
ci sono
yourself,
domande.
keep the question
Se
short, and then just tell me who
vogliamo
you're
fare
directing the
qualche
questions to.
commento, assicuriamoci di essere sintetici e daremo la parola a tutti voi.
Don't be shy. They're open to questions.
Non siate timidi, siamo aperti a tutte le domande.
All right, so we have one question.
Abbiamo una domanda dal fondo.
I direct this to Sister.
Vorrei rivolgere una domanda a Suor Luisa. Grazie per il suo commento, grazie a tutti per le vostre riflessioni. La mia domanda ha a che fare con questioni che stiamo vedendo in alcuni ambiti dell'Europa, dell'America settentrionale, e soprattutto mi riallaccio alla tutela in maniera nuova per me. E perciò la mia domanda è: si può avere uno sguardo più profondo alla vita?
Environments where safeguarding has been thought through and conceptualized. But in many locations, there are no communities or very, very small communities. So, Sister, from your experience, do you have any advice for us in leadership about the building of communities anew?
And again, I think that was going back to the choice of where the production would happen. And I know when we were talking things out, I kind of threw it out as a kind of a way to challenge ourselves was, you know, there are sisters who live on their own in an apartment. You know, so how is this module going to arrive at them under the title of community of safeguarding in a community setting? So without, I suppose, being too banal, I think we all joined Consecrated Life with a sense of community. Different structures along the years have changed and they've morphed for reasons of the apostolate, of the mission, for personal reasons at times. We all know there are scenarios that sisters can't live in community because it's better for them and it's better for the community. So, and all that goes with that, even canonically. But the whole idea is that in religious life, except for certain forms of consecrated life, we're called to community. How you build a culture of safeguarding when you have, say, individuals living on their own, I think in this sense it comes back to also the role of the congregation or the institute, because that sense of belongingness is still there. And it comes back also to the sense of responsibility, because safeguarding is the responsibility of each person. However, I know even in my own community, which was an international community in Ireland, which has its own historical background with regard to the abuse scandals and safeguarding, that hopefully we're coming out the other side. When we tried to raise even safeguarding ad extra, as I said before, this glaze would come over people's eyes, like, not again. But to even fathom the concept of having safeguarding ad intra within our own community to keep us safe with each other, not from each other, but at times it's also safe from each other because of characters, of personalities, etc. So how to keep that on the same par is not easy, but I think it comes back to congregational policies and dialogue, you know, to ensure that There's that open, two-ended dialogue with the sisters and also our structures of leadership. Without diverse, also it looks at leadership, because if sisters can't approach leadership because safeguarding is an issue within the communities, then again we need to look at, well, what is the service of authority about? Do we understand it in the wrong way, or is it really a kind of a gospel service? But I think it's having those spaces, again, around the table or organising at leadership levels to engage even people who are in small communities. We kind of come full circle. We have the means available. Maybe even 5 years ago, we were reluctant to think we can't have those kind of conversations if not in person. We can do it. We have the technology now. And we have platforms like this to begin the conversations, because I think it's a very friendly way of doing it. I never thought I'd use safeguarding and friendly in the same sentence, but it takes the fear out of having those courageous conversations about safeguarding. It's a very, I think, a very pastoral oriented way of approaching such a subject.
Any other questions? Perfect. Okay, well, thank you all. I want to thank all of our guests and panels for being here. And thank you all for your presence here. Your presence is proof to the commitment of this very important topic of safeguarding. I know Dr. Alessandra will be available to talk more about the actual unit if you have any questions about that.